Hello and welcome to another weekly devotion with Pastor Andrew. That's me. Too much coffee today, but here we are. We're in Lent, and it is very exciting. Excuse me as I empty my pocket. Lent and the word exciting in the same sentence. What? But it is. It's exciting as we enter into this time of contemplation. Talking with some of my colleagues, they're focused, their series, where our series is Overheard Conversations, which at least I think will be interesting as we consider potential conversations. We really don't know for sure if they happen, but maybe some of them in some form have. Other colleagues are focusing on the joy of Lent. Very interesting. I've heard 3 other pastors separate from each other say, oh yeah, that's our focus. The joy of Lent, each using different maybe materials, what have you, to focus on that. Very interesting. So as we move forward, we hear some familiar texts that build, of course, to Easter, right? Holy Week and Easter, contemplating Christ, God in the flesh, going, dying for us. Joining with us, all those things. What does this mean for us to claim this as our faith? So our text, I've been doing the Old Testament and I continue to do that, but our text this week comes from Genesis 17. It goes 1 through 7, and then it jumps to 15 through 17. And what I think I might want to do is actually include some of those other verses, which means I need to pause this. And I'm back. So we're in Genesis. We're going to go 1 through 17, maybe even up through 19. Yeah, 17, 1 through 19. So this is a chunky reading. When Abram was 99 years old, the Lord appeared to Abram and said to him, I am El Shaddai. I love this translation. El Shaddai, which translates to, I'm looking, God Almighty, or God of the mountain. I love it. I, the Lord, am El, and appeared to Abram and said to him, I am El Shaddai. Walk with me and be trustworthy. I will make a covenant between us, and I will give you many, many descendants. Then Abram fell on his face, and God said to him, But my covenant is with you, and you will be the ancestor of many nations. A little bit of a different translation here, right? The ancestor of many nations. And because I have made you the ancestor of many nations, your name will no longer be Abram, but Abraham. There's some notes here as well. Abram, meaning exalted ancestor. It will now be the ancestor of a multitude. Isn't that great? I will make you very fertile. I will produce nations from you, and kings will come from you. I will set up my covenant with you and your descendants after you in every generation as an enduring covenant. I will be your God, and your descendants, God after you. Your descendants, God after you. I will give you and your descendants the land in which you are immigrants, the whole land of Canaan, as an enduring possession, and I will be their God. Then God said to Abram, As for you, you must keep my covenant, you and your descendants in every generation. And this is my covenant that you and your descendants must keep. Circumcise every male. You must circumcise the flesh of your foreskins, and it will be a symbol of the covenant between us. Excuse me. On the 8th day after birth, every male in every generation must be circumcised, including those who are not your own children, those born in your household, and those purchased with silver from foreigners. Be sure you circumcise those born in your household and those purchased with your silver. Your flesh will embody my covenant as an enduring covenant. An uncircumcised male whose flesh of his foreskin remains uncircumcised will be cut off from his people. Yes, that is intended. He has broken, because he will have broken my covenant. Then God said to Abram, as for your wife Sarai, you will no longer call her Sarai. Her name will be Sarah. I will bless her and even give you a son from her. I will bless her so that she will become nations, and kings of peoples will come from her. And then Abraham fell on his face and laughed. He said to himself, can 100-year-old man become a father, or a 99-year-old woman a mother, and have a child? To God, Abraham said, if only you would accept Ishmael. But God said, no, your wife Sarah will give birth to a son for you, and you will name him Isaac. And there's a note here, Isaac. What does that mean? He laughs. That's what that word means, that name. And I've lost my place. You'll name him Isaac. I will set up my covenant with him and with his descendants after him as an enduring covenant. As for Ishmael, I've heard your request. I will bless him and make him fertile and give him many, many descendants. He will be the ancestor of 12 tribal leaders, and I will make a great nation of him. I included that last verse, that verse 20 there, because what we tend to focus on is Abraham. We forget Abraham is the father of many nations, where we as Christians, the Jewish and Christians, we say we come from, and as Christians we're adopted into this. They come from Sarah. Our Muslim brothers and sisters, siblings, they come from the line of Ishmael. So we all go back and we all come from the same place. So I want to include that because we need to hear in there, God, our God, will also bless not only the descendants of Abraham and Sarah, but that of Abram and Hagar, the servant of Abraham and Sarah. They will be blessed as well, those that come from the line of Ishmael, who is Hagar and Abraham, or Abram's child. So, lots to think about as we get into this season of Lent. And now my computer locked up. Here we go. Our devotional writer writes this, and see, I thought this was pretty funny. I mean, it's another one of those that I haven't seen anyone use this in a while. And as I looked who wrote this, I was like, oh yeah, someone that is, must be, I think he is 70, almost 80. But he's writing about this. Are you familiar with the abbreviation ROFL, roll on the floor laughing? Hashtag, right? Hashtag ROFL stands for rolling on the floor laughing. God shows up and repeated the covenantal promise to Abraham that his descendants would be exceedingly numerous. And Abraham, now 99 years old, with a 90-year-old wife. See, this is, he's actually 100 and she's 99. Fell on his face and laughed. Abraham ROFL'd, right? Rolled on the floor laughing. Because God is saying, I will bless you, and here you're going to have kids. And Abraham's like, what? And then, of course, there's a connection with Isaac being he laughed. But also, as we hear, because he makes this promise, but Sarah, and probably this is where those ages come from, Sarah doesn't have Isaac for still quite a while. So it's interesting when we dive into that as well, because it's like, oh, well, God promised this, but it may not be, I don't think it's like for another few years even. So Abraham rolled on the floor laughing. Abraham simply did not believe that God could or would keep the promise. Right? He hears that, he's like, yeah, okay, what? But here is the thing about promises. What matters is whether the promise maker can and will keep the promise. God, miraculously, was able to keep the promise. God faithfully did keep the promise. And the promise wasn't just to Abraham, but particularly it was to Sarah. God was not content to leave Sarah out of the covenant. Yeah, I think that's important too, yeah. Because up to this point, they're barren, they can't have children. whatever we figure with the ages, whatever that means. But now Sarah's being included. That's important too. And so Sarah, this 90-plus-year-old, gives birth to Isaac. Abraham and Sarah were both rolling on the floor laughing. ROFL. In fact, all of us are rolling on the floor laughing. As Sarah said, God has brought laughter for me. Everyone who hears will laugh with me. Yeah, because there's lots of laughing. But it's not a laughing like, oh, haha, okay, this is funny. It's, I don't believe this. How am I supposed to believe this? How interesting this is, because that's really the question we are pondering, not only in Lent, but all the time. Why do we believe this? It doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense to believe these things, but we do. It's what drives us, and it's what helps to form us. But why is that? Hence, Lent. What is this time? God comes, especially this year. Mark has been so short. We've really just been in that first part of 1. We jumped to 9 for the Transfiguration, then we jump back to 1. This coming Sunday, I think we jump to 8 because we hear right before the Transfiguration. We're jumping around, but what about the stuff in the middle? All the things that we are called to ponder. All the things, because now we walk with Christ to the cross. But why? Why would we do that? And I could sit here and say, well, think of this and think of this. But why do you do that? Look, I'm doing the John Candy. Why do you do that? Ooh, right? Why do you do that? There it is. There we go. And this is the question. Because Sarah and Abraham aren't laughing in God's face, they're just like, what? Are you sure? Yet they have faith. And can we do the same? Lots of things to think about. So as we think about that, we'll enter into more discussion. Please come to our Wednesday night services, not only for good eats, but for some Bible treats. Let's close in prayer. God of joy, turn our disbelieving laughter into a surprised joy of faith. Teach us to laugh with Sarah and Abraham and all whom you bless. Because God works, the Spirit flows, and it is often not what we expect. So, until next week, or tomorrow night when you're going to be there, God bless.